Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. You know, we have a whole staff of people going door to door to people's houses to tell them about this Patreon. So they come up knocking on people's doors and they just say, "Hey, would you be interested in hearing extra content from a podcast that talk about
Yeah,
movies?"
but it's been a money sink because everybody knows about it already.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why the reach is getting a little too over there. I mean, like, I got people from France talking about us.
Mm-hmm.
I got people from Uganda talking about us. I got people from so many people are talking about it, but yeah, make sure if you see somebody in a DIDF shirt at your door, they're there to help you out. They'll point you to the right direction.
Okay, cool.
They got a little pamphlet with all the information.
Perfect.
But anyway, check that out. It's only $5 a month. It doesn't affect any regular content. But Nathan, we did it. It's 300 episodes. Nathan,
Wow.
we
Holy
did
crap.
300 episodes of this show.
It's so wild to me because 100 was such a big deal, and I mean 300 is a big deal, but it kind of came, and I was like, oh wow, 300, we did it.
Well,
it just kind of rushed up on us.
It fell through the cracks a little bit for us
Yeah.
because I was thinking, like, at the time, I was just like, I remember I randomly was just thinking, like, what's the last movie we did? And then I looked at the last episode that aired, and it was like 296. And then I was like doing the math in my head. I was like, wait a minute. It's like, oh, this coming Thursday we're gonna be doing our 300th episode. So I had originally picked Cincinnati Kid, which you'll probably hear, but I wanted to do something a little more special because I just thought it'd be kind of fun, but. Not that movie is not special. Well, maybe it's not, but well, that's for another time.
Yes.
I wanted to pick something significant, and then the closest thing I could think of was 300 because I was like, oh, look how clever I am.
Yeah. I wonder. I'm sure there's another podcast that has done this one before.
They had to.
But it's too good to pass up. We gotta put our.
We are not above low hanging fruit.
I can tell you that, yeah. But no, I mean, I will say at least it's been a really great 300 episodes. It's rushed by, and I still am enjoying this so much. It's fun just talking about movies.
It is. It's like I said before. I mean, it's really helped me a lot creatively because I don't do a lot of stuff like this, and it's always fun to just to talk about movies. I would get to watch movies a lot more. Movies I probably would never have watched had we not done this. And some of them was probably for the better, and some was probably, I'm glad I watched them.
Hey, that's what's fun about movies. You never know what you're gonna get. I think Forrest Gump said that or something.
I think that was from a different movie.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, it was from English Patient. I don't know.
No, I think it was from the Swinging Cheerleaders.
Oh yeah, that one's influential for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I'm really glad we got to this point. Like you said, I didn't think back in 2021 when we started podcasting together that it would turn into something like this. So I'm really glad that we got to this point. But anyway, today we are talking about the movie 300 from 2007, which is directed by the great Zack Snyder. It's
one of our great directors.
I mean, Spielberg, Coppola, Scorsese,
Snyder,
Terrence Malick.
Oh yeah. Well,
and then Snyder.
Yeah, I think Snyder's the better cinematographer. Over his movies have a better look than all those people. I'm saying it right here, right now.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely got a lot of style to his. So,
well, that is true.
You can't argue the man doesn't want you to. He wants you to look at nice looking things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one true thing about Zack Snyder. I will ask.
Story be damned.
That I will screw everything else.
You will see a visual spectacle. Damn it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I guess this is interesting. For whatever reason in my head, when I first started this, I was like, "Oh, this is Zack Snyder's first movie," and I was wrong. It was Dawn of the
Oh,
Dead,
yeah.
which I remember liking that movie, but I have not seen that one since it was new. But I've heard it's still pretty good.
I feel like I watched it, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe more than that.
Hmm.
But it was pretty decent from what I remember.
It was a good remake.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't bad. So
Hmm.
this is I'll say this though, it's definitely the movie that put Zack Snyder on the map.
Yes, yeah. I think
Uh,
for someone to make something this stylish and be a director who only made one other movie, I think that's a big deal.
yeah, well, I mean, because I mean, Dawn of the Dead, it was good, but I don't remember it particularly being like a super stylish movie.
Not that I remember, no.
I remember like the whole big thing is like, oh, these zombies run now, but
Yeah, and that was a big deal.
um, but in this one, you know, it's very clear he had a certain way he wanted this movie to look, and because this movie is based off of a graphic novel by Frank Miller,
Yeah.
and it's based off of a true story where 300 Spartan soldiers went on to take the Persian army.
Based on a true story. Like how strong
Yeah,
emphasis on the base.
yeah, it's same way you'd say like some like folklore legend stuff. It's just like maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, but
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that this movie got made because Frank Miller, he wrote Sin City as well, those graphic novels, and that got made into a movie just a few years before this one. And that's okay. So I got upset over this. I watched behind the scenes for this movie.
oh, I
Um,
did too.
oh,
Okay,
you
go
did?
ahead.
Yeah. And Zack Snyder's like, I tried to pitch this to Warner Brothers. I wanted to look exactly like the graphic novel. No one tried this. A movie filmed on green screen we only filmed this indoors, but they didn't like my idea. And then eventually I did it. And I was like, Sin City did this. Robert Rodriguez did this. He made a stylish graphic novel movie. It's not the same style. That was all about black and white, but it still was a green screen graphic novel movie made by the same artist and writer.
Now, now, do you think maybe he didn't see Sin City?
Come on. Sin City was a popular movie, which
Maybe
even
he's like, maybe he just doesn't watch movies.
you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. But it is interesting because both of those movies would get sequels years and years later that would bomb. So that
Way too late on both accounts.
yeah, it's so weird the similarities on both of those movies because I remember Sin City being hit, but 300, this movie was huge. I remember this being a big deal.
Oh, I do too, because this came out like right when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And one thing I remember very vividly is that um that is was like a really big deal like on Blu-ray even.
Yes, yeah.
And
It was like a Blu-ray you had to have.
yeah, well, I mean the movie itself is just like such a spectacle. Like I remember so I mean at the time they weren't called memes, but now
Mhm.
there was a lot of memes back in the day just from
Mhm.
like the trailer of this movie
Yeah.
because it was that scene at the beginning of the movie where he does like he kicks the Persian messenger and he just says, "This is Sparta,"
Hmm.
and I was like, that was done to death,
Yeah. Years
like
after
in
it came out.
parody videos, like movies, like it was it was done to death because it's such a like it's such a over the top line and like his action just like so crazy. I mean, and there's a lot of scenes like that where Gerard Butler is just like screaming and it's just like but he always speaks in like sound bites. It's never been like it's not like how normal people talk. It's like basically like he's trying to be so like philosophical or like trying to like trying to be very hyper specific on what he says to make every word he says so memorable.
Yeah, it's crazy because going into this, I was like, yeah, I remember the Hero of Sparta line, But I didn't realize how many lines I just knew from this movie, because it wasn't only that line. There was other stuff from this movie that would like always pop up in those memes. And yeah, the way Gerard Butler delivers them all, it's always with a huge delivery.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like this movie made Gerard Butler too,
Yes,
and
yeah, because he had been in a few things, but I think this made him a star.
oh well, I mean, he did what, Dracula 2000 or something,
Yes.
and then he did Phantom of the Opera,
Yep, that's right.
and which both were not well received,
Mhm.
and this one, like, did it pretty well on the box office, and maybe he really hasn't quite gotten the same success since this
No,
movie.
not since Gamer.
Oh yeah, Gamer, of course. God, I look at his work and it's just like, like you'd think like at some point he would have come out with like another like well received movie, but he really has not.
No, it's so weird because I see him in the movie and I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna suck. I'm not gonna see it. Like the Has Fallen movies, zero interest in those movies, but I guess they make money because there are multiple of those movies.
Well, that's a different story. Yeah, that's more of like that they're following like the canon method where it's just like, oh, make a movie like semi cheap and like what people want to see and then get a big profit.
Yeah, that's true.
But since then it's just like these really just forgettable action movies or like these just really bad like rom-coms that
That's
he's
right.
done. And like because he's got like several of those. Okay, well, I guess the big thing he did, which I wouldn't even attribute to his success, it was like his ability is probably How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, How to Train Your Dragon. Wasn't there a movie with Jamie Foxx, Law Abiding
Law,
Citizen? That did well, if I remember
yeah,
right.
yeah, like people I think like that one, but I still don't remember it being like well received at the time. Yeah, it's got a 34 on Metascore.
Okay, I
So
thought it did better than that. Wow.
I remember it's like, yeah, audiences liked it, but it did really bad critically.
Yeah.
And but anyway, yeah, it's Gerard Butler is pretty much like the star of this movie, and I had forgot because I'd be honest, like I really at the time like I saw this movie back then, and I was never really like, oh my god, that was great. It was very just like, okay, that was fine, and so I really hadn't watched it since it came out.
Hmm.
So it's been, you know, uh, however long it's been since then, about 17 years or something crazy
Yeah.
like that. So
Same
and
same
I
here.
when I watched it, I was like, oh wow, I forgot Michael Fassbender was in this movie.
Right? He popped up and I was like, holy crap. So is this a star making movie for him too? Because like yeah,
He'd been in some other movies, I think, but very, very small production. Like this was like his very first big movie.
yeah, but he's like barely in it, but he does play a bigger side character than some other ones. Maybe it's just because I knew who it was. I was just like, wow, he's in this. Lena Headey plays Gerard Butler's queen. And she, she'd be in Game of Thrones. She'd get a lot bigger after this. Once again, she'd been in things, but this movie did
Yeah.
a lot for her.
Yeah. So this movie was like making a lot of people's careers, and you forget how significant this was for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And like I said before, this was like a movie. I remember like you have to go see this movie, like on Blu-ray, because that it's like this is like a movie made for Blu-ray. And I
Yeah.
remember like my friend like would like he wanted like how I watched it was like he had me come over and like watch it on his sound system and everything. Like that
Oh,
was when like people were making like a big deal, put in his PS3 at the time. And
that's like that was the way to watch Blu-rays.
oh yeah, I didn't have a Blu-ray player. I've never owned like a Blu-ray player.
Neither am I. Yeah.
But it's always been like, oh, here's my PlayStation that plays Blu-rays. But um yeah, that's I remember it being like such a big deal. I remember going to Best Buy for like years after this
Hmm.
movie came out, and you'd see like the demo reel for this movie to like showcase like the power
Yep.
of their TVs or whatever.
Yeah, and if I remember right, there were bundles with Blu-ray players, and 300 would often be bundled with it. It was just that. I think I've seen this movie twice. Once in the theater, and I watched it once on Blu-ray. Like it really was like I think it helped propel it to like being bigger, the
Yeah.
format.
So you remember like how big this movie was at the time.
Hmm.
And I would say like even now, like I don't ever really hear people talking about it anymore unless they're like really into it, I guess. But like
Yeah.
I feel like I don't hear as much talk about it or like it being like one of the greats or anything like that.
No, it's kind of been lost to time. Not lost the time, because I mean, if you bring it up, people are going to know what it is. But I don't know. It's crazy. It had fans and people loved it back in the day. But I think there was a surprising amount because I was the same. I remember liking it, but not like loving it. And I think a lot of people had that same reaction. But everyone knew it looked good.
Yeah. So this movie was definitely a very heavy style over substance because the story of this movie, I mean, it's pretty much just like a group of soldiers, like fighting their way to
Mhm.
dethrone like the Persian army that's trying to overthrow them.
Yeah, it's
And
simple.
very simple, but how the movie starts, it goes through like the whole montage of like how a Spartan soldier is made and like what kind of training they go through and all that. And one thing I like forgot like is just how hyper masculine this movie is. Like
There's
it is.
so many shirtless, muscular dudes in this movie.
Well, yeah, and just like I like forgot. Like I was just I didn't realize at the time. I guess because I guess people at the time were just like, oh my god, this is like the coolest thing. These guys are
Mhm.
so manly. But like I cannot tell you how many times I feel like I was getting hit over the head with them telling me about how great Spartans were.
Yeah.
And
No, I felt the same way. I really did.
because there was like they're like, we are Spartans. We're like, we fight to the death. We want a soldier's death. We
Hmm.
have sex with women, real women.
Yeah, because he even says it very early in the movie. He's like, "You're a king, the boy lover," and it's little
Well, yeah,
things
because
like that.
he says that like in the beginning of the movie, like when the Persian messenger comes there to basically like, hey, like lay down your swords or we're gonna annihilate you type of thing. And
Mhm.
he's just like, oh well, I heard the men from Athens turned you down and they're boy lovers over there,
That's right. Yeah.
and like I don't know what the deal with Spartans is, but like I was like I fully believe like all those dudes hanging out probably were having something going on. But and
I
then
mean, that's just the way it was at the time. Um,
and then and even Lena Headley, like Hetty at the time, she speaks up to the messengers, just being like, you don't know who you're talking to, and he's like, why is this woman talking on the same level as a man? And she's like, because us Spartan women give birth to real men. And I'm just like, they say that type of stuff so
yeah.
much in this movie. Just
There was something about this movie that I was like talking to my fiance about it. This movie kind of made me feel this is the word I used, icky. Like it just felt kind of like
it didn't age well.
gross. No, not at all. And I mean, it kind of came to light the type of person Frank Miller was because he would make a graphic novel a few years after this movie about a white superhero who beats up Muslim terrorists. And like that's like super, super political stuff. And this movie also kind of rang for me just a little racist.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. It's pretty much like, oh yeah, all black people or brown people, people of color, those are the bad guys. But these white, manly Spartans, yeah, those are men. Those are,
Yeah, like these Persians who are wearing practically women's clothing and makeup and their dark skin, they're evil.
yeah, there's like even one ominous scene where it's like, it is a black dude talking and he like looks at the screen and it gets really dark and he's just like got his eyes
Uh,
peering, which I know is probably ripped right out of the graphic novel, but there's just something about it. I don't know.
yeah, I felt the same way. I was just like, I don't know what it is, but this movie's making me a little uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
and and like I said, there was just a lot of like that type of stuff where they constantly bring up sex because like even later in the movie, when they're getting ready to go on their journey, Leonidas' captain spots this, or Leonidas spots another man, and he notices how young they are, and he
Mhm.
turns to the captain. He's like, "Isn't this your son?" And he's like, "Yes, he is." And he's like, "Yeah, I could tell he's never felt a woman's warmth before." And and he's like, "Don't worry," it because the whole thing is they're like, "Hey, we got all these 300 Spartans here, but back home they got kids to carry on their name, so it's all good." And
Yeah.
even the captain's like, "Don't worry, if that son dies, I got plenty more at home. They're gonna keep the name alive." It just like it's like,
Yeah.
and then Leonidas just passes him, he's like, "You're a good man. You're a good captain too." And just,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has this weird like sex politics because like I guess there's like these like it's not a race, but there's like people that can tell the future and they tell it
the
through
oracles,
the
yeah.
oracles. They tell it through the most beautiful woman and they basically take her and just make her give messages. They lick her and all she does is like read the future. That was weird because there's multiple sex scenes in this movie, very stylized. They show nudity. Lena Headey has a sex scene, and that's super stylized. It's
Yeah, there was that one, and there's another one where like one of the Oracle women like dances naked, and it's like
yeah,
that. I thought was like, okay, that's kind of stupid, and
yeah. And, I mean, and I can only guess it was from the graphic novel because I haven't read this one. I've read Sin City. That's just kind of the style. That's just what's in these.
yeah, I mean, I've read like Dark Knight Returns and
Hmm.
that book, but I've never read 300. I mean, I've read Watchmen, which that's like
Hmm.
super stylized too, but um, yeah, it just a very odd movie. Like just a lot of odd choices that they made for some of
Yeah.
these. I will say this. I mean, it does look nice. There are some like
Oh,
really nice looking CGI effects. Some have not aged well at all, though. I
no,
will say that.
there's one where like there's like it's like like almost like an elephant, attack elephant that shows up, and that looks really bad.
Oh, I
Um,
thought I was thinking of the wolf at the beginning of the movie.
yeah, that one's
I don't
bad.
like that one looked horrible.
Yeah, but like I think I would complain nowadays about a movie being filmed on green screen. This one, I think it works with the style. I will give it props for that. It looks cool. Like there's some really great stuff with lighting, or when they're in the wheat field. It looks CG, but that's a part of the style, and I think it works. I do think the style works.
I agree. I mean, I do think for what they were trying to accomplish, I do think the style does
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I don't like, and I guess it's not really this movie this at this time period's fault, is that how heavy like this style gets leaned into with Zack Snyder after this.
Yes, yeah. He was like, "This is what I do now. This is everything I
Yeah,
make."
yeah, and because he did this for Watchmen, he did this
Hmm.
for Sucker Punch and
Yeah, I
Guardians of Gahul and all those. So it's
oh
it's
man.
very I really didn't like the trend that this movie set after this, where it's just like, oh well, like for this one, it makes sense. You make your graphic novel, it's gonna look super stylized. You want it to look like a comic book. I get
Yes,
it.
yeah.
And
Um
so
and
that
and
makes sense.
I'd even say Watchmen does it well, but like when starts
Yeah.
getting out of the graphic novels like Sucker, I remember watching Sucker Punch in the theater and being like, I don't like the way this looks because because he's just doing his style and it's not really based off of anything.
No, well, it's very clear he kind of leaned into more of like style over substance. And
Yeah.
I don't really like that. That basically he just created a monster type of thing. And
Yeah.
but but again, it's not this movie's fault. So I don't give any points away from this one. But
No.
um I will say for what they were trying to accomplish, because the story is like super simple. They don't really need like a whole big um like acting sequence or anything like that. It's just very like,
Mm.
okay, there's gonna be a lot of action sequences. I want it to look really cool. And it,
Mhm.
it does that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it does that. And I think the action's cool. The violence, there's a lot of blood scenes. Some of it's a little lame. Like sometimes they'll he'll like slice someone's neck and blood will stop in the air. That happens once, but
That happens a lot. I feel like where they're like, oh, we got to do like the super slow mo or like go like really fast and then it stops like in midair, like and just
yeah.
so they do that multiple times.
But putting myself in the mindset of like 2007 or 2007, it was cool. It was definitely cool then because you weren't really seeing anything like this at that time.
Yeah. So again, that's not the movie's fault. And again, at the time it was, probably people were like, "Woo!" like
Yeah.
just clapping.
But
And
I do think returning to it now, the story is maybe a little too simple too. I mean, and I'm the type of guy, you've heard me on this show plenty of times. Sometimes I like style over substance if the style, but this, I just think the substance just it actually gets boring. It's a 2-hour movie. I was like really surprised how much it drags.
yeah, I mean there's a lot of battle sequences which you think would be good, but I think there's too many
Yeah,
at some point.
they start to mesh together.
I agree, yeah. And there's like a whole subplot to it, Lena Headey, where she's like trying to get resources to the Spartans, and she ends up having sex with one of the council members, but that turns out to be like a big backstabbing plot point. And I'm just like, what's the relevance of this?
Yeah, and then there's that horrible. There's a rape scene in that, and like that one, I was like, oh, it felt gross because he's like, you're gonna hate this, and you're not gonna like any moment of this, and it's just like,
yeah,
ugh, we don't need this at all. I mean, she
yeah,
gets her
that,
revenge, but what's to the point?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's again like that's Frank Miller's deal. He does that a lot, unfortunately, and
Yeah. Not a crazy amount of strong women in his movies, and she's a strong woman, but she still has to have a scene like that.
yeah, where she has to be totally taken advantage of,
Yeah.
and even just like the sex scenes they have in here, like with those oracles, like, and it's just like they like creepy like monster looking people like licking them, and
hmm
like
You
you
know,
said,
yeah, and I mean, here's another thing that made me feel gross about this movie. So they this I don't really care about because whatever. I know it's like based off of like a thing where they kill babies if they're deformed or not perfect, if they're not the perfect men. But there is one character that is deformed that follows them around, and he ends up being a bad guy. He ends up being a traitor. It's like, oh well, yeah, we should have never let this disabled person live. The other because he's a bad guy, of course, which is another like that's another layer on top of this
yeah, yeah, that was like a whole plot point where he wanted to join the Spartans, but then Leonidas was basically just like, well, yeah, hold up your shield, and he's just like, because his whole body's deformed, he's like, and just like can't get it up that high, and he's just like, no, not good enough to be a soldier. But he's like, you can bring up some water, and you could like
clean
tend to our
bodies.
tend to our wounded and carry out dead bodies, and it's just like, he just like throws a little temper tantrum and runs off.
And then he ends up telling
Well,
them the one way to beat these guys.
yeah, and so he joins the Persians. That's the other thing too. Like in the Persians, like people like that's pretty much what happens is like somebody like goes to the Spartans basically like, hey, like I want to get some help from you guys, but the Spartans like they like their morals are too high and like they won't do that, and then they end up getting betrayed. So it's like the Spartans end up getting betrayed like 3 times in
Yeah,
this
they
movie.
do. Yeah, and those people that help them for a little bit, they're like, "We're running away," and the Spartans are like, "No, we stay and fight. We're Spartans."
Oh god, and okay, there is that other scene too, like how I said like how hyper like masculine it is, like they run into these Arcadians, and the Arcadians are like, hey, we're here to help you guys, like we believe in your cause. So these people are there like willing to lay down their lifeline, and they're just like, they say to the Spartans like, oh wow, like I thought you guys would have brought more people, like you would have brought more soldiers. And he's like looking at these people, like Leonidas looking at these little skinny guys, and like, what are you? It's like, I'm a potter. It's like, what about you? Like, I'm a sculptor. And it's like, what about you, Spartans? What are you? And then just like, it's like, yeah, see, I brought more soldiers. Like, just like rubbing it in this dude's face, like how like pathetic they are, even though they're like there to help them.
Yeah, right. They're like, yeah, your men that you brought are disgusting. They're potters. Okay, my
Yeah,
men fight.
you guys are just a bunch of beta
Yeah.
cucks. We're some
Yeah.
alphas.
I mean, honestly, that's what this movie, like, what they're feeling like. And it's crazy because these are people, they train their children as fighters, and we see like kids getting like beaten and like beaten up, and it's like, oh, that's training, that's men, they're becoming tough men. And it's like, really? These guys are the good guys?
Yeah, it's a lot of questionable stuff in there. I mean, I know it's supposed to be like this, like, oh, that's just how it was back in the day. But
Yeah, true.
I'm like, oh,
I
is
guess
it
the
though?
I guess the way the movie plays it, it's just odd because it'd be different if it was more of like a look at like how they lived versus like this feels like it's really like praising them, like this is the way
It,
we need to be.
well, I mean, like, I don't know if we watched the same one, but they watched like the behind the scenes. There was like a 40-minute behind the scenes video I
I didn't
found
get to watch that.
on YouTube, like from like I guess one of the DVDs or something. But
Hmm.
um, they were just praising, like heaping like so much praise on like these were like real soldiers. Like
Hmm.
they knew how to fight. Like back then, they would never back down. Like it's just all types of praise, like on there, and not a hint of like, oh man, it's like that. Those were the dark ages then. Type of now, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like those are men's men type of things.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's an odd way to look at it. But that's also the times. We didn't have like I guess in 2007 we were very, very different.
Yeah. So like at the end of the movie, it does show like the Spartans do end up getting killed,
Mm.
and one, but I thought the ending was kind of like a little bit lackluster
Hmm.
because it turns out like it was at the end of the movie, it was the one of the guys, like Leonidas told him to live and tell the story,
Yes, yeah.
and he was the narrator the whole time,
Hmm.
and it's like he formed like his own little army of Spartans. It's like, oh, see, I brought all these other Spartans now we're gonna go beat up these Persians. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. It was a little underwhelming. It probably needed to end bigger, like, right, like a real warriors, everyone's wiped out kind of deal, right? But I guess maybe that's, I don't know, how, what is
well,
it based off of?
I mean, I'm hoping they address that in 302.
Is 302 a prequel or is it the actual sequel?
I have no idea.
We'll find out one day.
Well, we better, because that's the second one. So episode 600, that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes, yeah, well, we have to. If we get to 600, 302 is happening.
Right. So that's 300 times two.
Yes.
Uh,
But oh, go ahead.
yeah. Overall, though, I would give it. Hmm, I would probably give it a. I probably wouldn't watch it again, but
No, for
I,
me, I don't
no,
recommend it.
yeah, I don't recommend it. I mean, go get the demo Blu-ray from Best Buy that they threw out, and
Mhm.
that'd be good. That'd be good enough. But
Yeah, just watch the clip of him
yeah,
kicking him down the well.
no, it's very, very, it did not age great
Hmm.
in terms of style, and it didn't turn, and the story is just not that interesting at all. So it's funny because I like it less now than I thought I did. Like when
Same
I was like,
here.
because I remember like, I think I was like, oh yeah, that wasn't a bad movie or something, and
Hmm.
then I watch it now, I was like, oh no, that wasn't good at all, and
Yeah,
just
yeah, it was definitely a change because I remember liking it, and then yeah, it was definitely like oh no, that was bad. So
yeah.
yeah,
So I would not give this a recommend. This is a very much a skip for me.
yeah,
So
yeah. Watch Meet the Spartans instead.
maybe who knows, but all right. So that's gonna do it. So Nathan, I think since it's our 300th episode, I thought that we could go ahead and rank all 300 movies we talked about in order. And we're going to start at number 300. So I'm going to start with mine. Number 300.
Wow, Ryan, that's your number one?
Yeah, I got some hot takes.
Oh my God.
I can't believe we've been like arguing here for the last 2 hours about this. Because when I heard your number 16, I'm just like, what?
Yeah, well, let's talk about your number 118, okay? But we've already, I've been here too long. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
God.
Wait, Nathan, were we recording that whole time?
Yeah, of course. Oh no, we weren't.
Oh, your finger slipped.
Yeah, dang it. Well, whatever. Well,
yeah.
But lost media. It is what it is.
I feel like I'm not as confident in my rankings anymore, so maybe I need to go back to adjusting them. So
yeah, exactly. I'm happy we could just name all 300 off of our dome.
Yeah, I wasn't even looking at the list.
I knew my ranking.
Absolutely, I have it at all times. But on a serious note, thank you guys so much for watching it. Whether you've listened to like one of our episodes or all of them, or you're just now listening in, or you fell off at a certain point, I get it. Trust me. But even if you listen to like one episode some other time, we really do appreciate you listening to us. It really means a lot, even if you listen to us, a big fan or not. But I have fun doing this. Like I've said it before. Even if 100 people are listening or nobody's listening, I have a good time doing it, and I will keep doing it with Nathan until it just doesn't feel fun anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Nope, I feel the same way, and I do that. We do this for you guys, and I'm happy you listen. Because I know people are always listening to us, and like you said, either if you've listened to them all, or you just pick ones that you've listened to, you pick episodes where you've seen the movie. Whatever. I'm happy that you're listening. Thank you. And yeah, to 300 more episodes.
Let's hope so. Yes. We got to cover Rise of an Empire 300.
We'll end on Rise of the Empire. I feel like that's the best way to end.
What? You're announcing the end of the podcast?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No.
Wow.
We'll get there and we'll do even more. At 900, we'll do something.
Yeah, we'll go out at 10,000.
We at least got to get to 1408. We got to cover that one.
Every movie that has a number, we got to do that. Okay. All right.
We missed. Nothing. I'm not even going to keep going.
We've missed so many other numbered movies.
I know. We missed lucky number 11. We missed 11.
We missed Ocean's 11. We missed.
Oh man, maybe we'll redo it. We'll reset.
Yeah, when we do our reboot series.
Yes,
but again, thank you so much for listening. But Nathan, we're gonna get back to our regularly scheduled programming, which is what?
Well, Ryan, like you said, we're past 300, so it works out. We're gonna start the 300s off with Anmara, and we're gonna be talking about Skyfall. Yep, we're going into the big one, Skyfall. And Skyfall is streaming over on Prime.
Sounds great. Sounds terrific. Well, Nathan, we're going to do another Gamera one. And this one is actually going to be the last Showa movie of Gamera, the last Showa era Gamera movie.
It's the last one you're going to show me?
We'll see if you want to show more after it's done. But yeah, this one is called Gamera Super Monster, and that one is streaming for free on Tubi right now. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so why don't you email us over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on X at DIDFpod, and once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But this is DIDF.